Should Hong Kong oil companies widen their offerings to give local users more choices? Petrol taken from two Mun trucks in suspected overnight theft. And Washington claims it destroyed Iranian mine-laying vessels. Good evening. Welcome to TVB News. Hong Kong's fuel prices stay high amid tensions in the Middle East. Roundtable convener Michael Tian said more fuel options should be made available for customers at petrol stations. Mimosa Ngai reports.
Triggered by the Middle East war and the global crude oil prices, Hong Kong's fuel prices continue to stay high. At a petrol station in Wan Chai, the pump prices for each litre of fuel have climbed above $30. Stanley Zheng, chairman of the Lok Ma Chau China-Hong Kong Freight Association, said large corporations could receive notable discounts from oil companies. He said fuel companies will only charge less than $10 per litre for their big corporate customers, despite the existing diesel price per litre being above $30, meaning the discount is more than 70%. But for other drivers, Zheng said they have far less discount. Former lawmaker Michael Tian from the Roundtable questioned Hong Kong's limited fuel options at petrol stations.
The government should pressure them, the oil companies in Hong Kong, to broaden their offering and not just sell the most expensive level gasoline in Hong Kong. That's what government should do, and that's what I expect them to do.
Tian thinks the turmoil in the oil market will persist for some time, adding that it could trigger a surge of drivers switching to electric cars before the government's one-for-one replacement scheme ends this month. Meanwhile, online videos shows that long queues of cars line up at Guangzhou petrol stations. On the mainland, the adjustment of fuel prices came on Tuesday, but the prices are still only one-third of those in Hong Kong, with prices of 95-octane and 98-octane petrol ranging from 7.66 to 9.5 yuan. A Zhuhai petrol station staff said that about 70 to 80% of their customers come from Hong Kong. Mimosa Ngai, TVB News.
Since the outbreak of the Middle East war, the retail price of automotive fuel in Hong Kong has been steadily rising. Customs Commissioner Chan Sek-tat said he has noticed recent instances of individuals smuggling petrol from the mainland into Hong Kong for sale, emphasizing that customs will intensify its crackdown. Chan said the sale of untaxed petrol is a criminal offense and Hong Kong customs will vigorously combat this. Chan added the buying of untaxed petrol involves not only tax evasion, but also creates significant fire risks, posing a considerable danger to the vehicles and surrounding neighbors. Thieves were suspected to have stolen fuel from 4 trucks in Tuen Mun, with reported losses of some $30,000 worth of diesel. One of the trucks is a container tractor. It was parked on the side of Montfort Street in Tuen Mun. Police cordoned off the area for investigation. The owner said he filled up the tank with fuel last night. When he went to retrieve the vehicle this morning, he found both fuel tank caps open and the tanks empty. He suspected fuel theft and reported it to the police. Police officers arrived at the scene and found the tanks of 3 nearby trucks were broken into. The total loss exceeded $30,000 and the case is being treated as theft from vehicles. Iran launched new attacks against Israel and Gulf Arab countries while Israel carried out waves of airstrikes on Iran and Lebanon as the Middle East war entered its 11th day. The U.S. said it took out more than a dozen mine-laying Iranian vessels, and the Islamic Republic vowed to block the region's oil exports, saying it would not allow even a single liter to be shipped to its enemies. The White House insisted that the spike in oil and gas prices as a result of the U.S. and Israel's war with Iran is temporary and expected, and will actually result in lower prices in the long term. Daniel Rao tells us more.
Damage and debris was scattered near Tehran's Resalat Square following more Israeli strikes on the Iranian capital. Footage released by humanitarian organization the Red Crescent also showed rescue workers carrying body bags into vehicles at the site. The group said at least 6 people were killed in the area. Residents of Tehran said they had experienced some of the heaviest strikes of the war, leading to electricity cuts in many neighborhoods of the capital. And in Israel, air raid sirens sounded and interceptions were seen across Tel Aviv as Iranian missiles were launched towards the country. There were no reports of damage or injuries. The US said it took out more than a dozen mine-laying Iranian vessels Tuesday, and the Islamic Republic vowed to block the region's oil exports, saying it would not allow even a single litre to be shipped to its enemies. As concerns grew about the war's effect on a strategic waterway, the US military said it destroyed 16 mine layers. However, US President Donald Trump said in social media posts there were no reports of Iran planting explosives in the Strait of Hormuz, through which 20% of the world's oil is shipped. Meanwhile, the White House insists that the spike in oil and gas prices as a result of the US and Israel's war with Iran is temporary, and expected it will actually result in lower prices in the long term.
Once the national security objectives of Operation Epic Fury are fully achieved, Americans will see oil and gas prices drop rapidly, potentially even lower than they were prior to the start of the operation. And we will live in a world where Iran can no longer threaten the United States or our allies with a nuclear bomb.
Elsewhere, the Iranian ambassador to the United Nations once again criticized the UN and its most powerful body, the Security Council, for what he characterized as continued silence about the US-Israeli war.
It is deeply regrettable that Security Council continues to remain silent. The Council is turning a blind eye to this grave violation, despite its primary responsibility under the UN Charter to maintain international peace and security. Instead, some Council members are attempting to reverse the roles and position of victims and aggressors. They seek to reward the aggressor and punish the victims through a biased and politically motivated resolution.
General TV News.
As the Iran war rages, Iran continued to launch attacks on targets across the Arab Gulf, while Bahrain and other neighboring states announced intercepting Iranian missiles and drones. Meanwhile, an upward spiral of hostilities was reported in Lebanon as Israeli troops and Iran-backed militant group Hezbollah traded blows on the front. The Israeli president vowed Israel will do whatever is necessary to dismantle the capabilities of Hezbollah. An Iranian attack struck a residential building in Bahrain's capital, Manama, in the early hours of Tuesday, killing a woman and injuring 8 others. The island kingdom, which plays host to US Navy's 5th Fleet headquarters, vowed its air defense systems would continue to respond to heinous Iranian attacks. A spokesperson for the Bahrain National Communications Center announced 3 missiles and 3 drones were destroyed on Tuesday, adding they have intercepted a total of 105 missiles and 176 drones fired from Iran since the start of the war. Separately, Israeli warplanes flew at low altitude over Beirut as they fired multiple airstrike salvos targeting Hezbollah's financial arm Al-Qat al-Hassan in the city's southern suburbs. Heavy smoke plumes could be seen rising above the skyline. In central Beirut's Aisha Bakar neighborhood, authorities said 4 people were injured after Israelis struck an apartment building without prior warning. Israeli ground forces' focused raids were also underway in the south of Lebanon. Hezbollah said they hit Israeli troops and fired rockets into northern Israel in the latest round of fighting between the two sides that started on March the 2nd. This as Israel claimed it killed one of Hezbollah's military commanders. Israeli President Isaac Herzog said his country has no desire to attack anyone, but is determined to completely dismantle the Lebanese militant group if it just thinks of continuing to harass and threaten. On Wednesday, Iranian authorities stated that banks and financial institutions are now targets in the Middle East after the killing of a staff at bank in Tehran during Israeli-American airstrikes. The announcement especially put Dubai at risk, which is home to many international financial institutions, and Saudi Arabia. Authorities said 4 people were injured as 2 Iranian drones struck near Dubai International Airport. Airlines have cancelled or diverted flights to and from the Middle East in some of the busiest aviation corridors connecting Europe and Asia. An Indian technology entrepreneur stranded by the disruption elaborated on his journey heading out of Doha after spending nearly a week waiting.
We are at the border crossing, getting our immigration and the visa done. The phones in the place immigration control were blaring with alarms about attacks over Doha. And we also heard some explosions far away. Life is unpredictable and sometimes it takes you a different path, and just glad to be safe and back home.
Foreign Minister Wang Yi has called for an immediate ceasefire and a return to negotiations in the Middle East. He made the remarks during a phone call with Qatar's Prime Minister and top diplomat Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al Thani on Tuesday. Prolonged conflict will only cause greater losses for all parties concerned. He lashed out at the US and Israel for initiating military operations against Iran without authorization from the United Nations Security Council, stating such move clearly violated the purposes and principles of the UN Charter and the basic norms governing international relations. One urged efforts toward a political solution and voiced support for Gulf nations in taking the future of the region in their own hands. He said China will continue to play a constructive role in easing tensions and restoring peace in its own way. And still ahead, Canada increases security at diplomatic venues after shots fired at consulate. And Cathay Pacific expects fuel surcharges to rise amid war in the Middle East. Welcome back. Canadian police are investigating after the US consulate in downtown Toronto was hit by gunfire. Nobody was injured. Royal Canadian Mounted Police Chief Superintendent Chris Leather called it a national security incident and said the National Police Force is working with Toronto police to understand the motive. Leather said the American and Israeli consulates, as well as embassies in Ottawa, will see an increase in security.
At this time, the INSET team has been engaged, as this is a national security incident, and we are working with Toronto Police and others to understand the motivations of those involved. The RCMP regularly works in close collaboration with police services of jurisdictions across the country, as well as our partners with Global Affairs Canada, in the fulfillment of our mandate to provide protection of designated persons, including foreign diplomats, and in relation to incidents that occur at or in the vicinity of embassies or consulates. For the moment, while the early stages of the investigation are taking place, we have increased security around embassies and consulate buildings here in Toronto and in the Ottawa region.
French President Emmanuel Macron said the world needs nuclear power as a source of progress, prosperity and independence, citing the negative impact of fossil fuels on geopolitics amid the tensions in the Middle East. Macron spoke at the International Nuclear Energy Summit held outside Paris. The summit comes exactly 15 years to the day of Japan's Fukushima disaster. But Macron said there is a need for energy that is produced at the lowest possible price, which also creates jobs and reduces carbon dioxide emissions. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen and Rwanda President Paul Kagame are among those scheduled to speak at the summit. At least 6 people have been killed and 3 others hospitalized with severe injuries after a bus caught fire in the town west of Switzerland's capital, Bern. Reports said a person in the bus may have started the fire deliberately. Government officials said that after rushing to the scene, rescue teams found the post bus to be engulfed in flames. The fire came just months after the devastating fire in a Swiss ski resort where more than 40 people were killed. China's COSCO Shipping has suspended operations at Balboa Port, located at the entrance to the Panama Canal, according to Panamanian media. The move follows a ruling by Panama's Supreme Court in late January that annulled the contract to operate the port held by a unit of CK Hutchison. APM Terminals, a unit of Maersk, recently began temporarily operating the port for a period of up to 18 months. It's not known whether the suspension was temporary or permanent. Hong Kong's flagship carrier, Cathay Pacific, posted a net profit of over $10 billion in 2025, driven by expanded capacity and robust cargo demand. As a result of the ongoing tensions in the Middle East, the airline will soon announce a fuel surcharge increase, citing a surge in jet fuel costs. Samantha Lee tells us more.
In response to volatile oil prices, Hong Kong Airlines was the first carrier to announce a fuel surcharge hike. Cathay Pacific also signaled at its annual results press conference that it will raise the surcharge. Their current surcharges range from $142 to $569.
If we look at the jet fuel prices in the so far in March, we are seeing the jet fuel almost doubled compared to the average in Jan to February. So as the fuel surcharge is based on Singjet or jet fuel as a reference point, so we can expect that fuel surcharge will also go up because of the current unusual situation.
As to whether ticket prices will also be affected, the carrier says it depends on global supply and demand.
For us, Hong Kong, Europe, I think that's the obvious one. So we do see an upsurge in demand, but we actually also see some upsurge in demand in other parts of our networks as well. For example, Indian to North America, that is also a routing which relies heavily on Middle Eastern hubs previously. So we do also see travelers trying to find alternatives for these itineraries.
In 2025, Cathay's net profit went up 9.5% to $10.8 billion. Its subsidiary, HK Express, however, recorded a wider loss of $996 million. In addition to a pay rise this year for the entire group, staff may also receive a total of 11 weeks' salary through discretionary bonuses. Samantha Lee, TVB News.
The fourth session of the 14th National Committee of the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference concluded today. Chairman of the CPPCC National Committee, Wan Huning, said the advisory body must fully leverage its role in providing policy recommendations to support the implementation of the 15th Five-Year Plan. Samantha Lee has more.
The closing meeting took place at the Great Hall of the People this morning, attended by President Xi Jinping and other state leaders. Chairman of the CPPCC National Committee, Wang Huining, chaired the meeting, where members approved a series of documents, including the Standing Committee's work report. A political resolution was also passed with 2,057 votes, which emphasized the CPPCC's role in offering advice and suggestions regarding the 15th Five-Year Plan.
坚定不移贯彻一国两制、港人治港、澳人治澳、高度自治方针。
The resolution also mentioned the resolute implementation of one country, two systems, Hong Kong people administering Hong Kong, Macau people governing Macau, and a high degree of autonomy. Samantha Lee, TVB News.
Jimmy Lai, founder of Next Digital, had his conviction overturned on appeal in a case about the illegal use of land in Zhenguanao Industrial Estate. The Department of Justice has decided not to appeal. A government spokesperson said that after comprehensively considering all factors, the Department of Justice will not take further legal action. Justice officials say that while the breach of contract did not meet the conviction threshold for fraud, the objective fact is that Jimmy Lai had misused public resources for private gain and should be condemned. The Hospital Authority and the Fire Services Department are piloting the pre-hospital stroke triage scheme, which sends patients suspected of having acute stroke symptoms to designated hospitals for treatment. Under the program, paramedics use standardized assessments to determine the patient's condition. If a patient is suspected of having a large blood vessel blockage, the A&E department of a designated hospital with the appropriate treatment services will be notified and will prepare in advance. Patients from Sha Tin, Tai Po and North District will be sent to Prince of Wales Hospital. Patients from Tu Mun and Yuen Long will be sent to Tu Mun Hospital, avoiding the need for transfers and maximizing the golden hour for treatment. Since its launch at the end of last year, the program has helped 52 patients. A toy was thrown from a high-rise building in Zhangzhou, damaging a car parked on the road. No one was injured. Police found a young boy alone in the apartment and later arrested his mother. Online footage shows an object falling out of an apartment window, hitting a parked car. Several other toys were on the ground. Police later entered the unit on Tainan Street and found a 4-year-old Ugandan boy alone. The boy's 28-year-old mother was arrested on suspicion of child abuse or neglect. And that's the news. Thank you for watching.